Which is stronger, force or wisdom? The sword or the mind? Takeshi believed strength was the key to everything, until a single journey with a monk changed his life forever. The sun hung low over the distant hills, casting a golden glow on the open training field. Two warriors faced each other, swords drawn, muscles tense. Takeshi tightened his grip, his heart pounding with the thrill of the fight. His opponent moved swiftly, striking with precision, but Takeshi was faster. With a swift parry and counterattack, he disarmed the man and sent him sprawling to the ground. A murmur of approval rippled through the watching crowd. Takeshi stood victorious, his breath heavy but his stance firm. But then, from the side of the training ground, a voice spoke, calm, yet piercing. You fight well, but you still do not understand. Takeshi turned to see Master Ryo, the old sage, standing at the edge of the field. His long robes fluttered slightly in the breeze, his expression unreadable. Takeshi scoffed, wiping the sweat from his brow. Understanding won't protect me from a sword. Hey! Master Ryo let out a quiet chuckle. Neither will strength alone. Frustration burned in Takeshi's chest. He had spent his life training, sharpening his skills, preparing for any battle. What did this old man know of real combat? Then prove it, Takeshi challenged. Show me that wisdom is stronger than the sword. The monk smiled knowingly. Very well. Walk with me, and we will see which path leads to true mastery. Takeshi hesitated, his instincts telling him this was a waste of time. But something about the monk's confidence unsettled him. With a deep breath, he sheathed his sword. Fine, but I won't be convinced so easily. And so, the warrior and the sage set off on their journey, each determined to prove that their way was the right one. Before we continue, let me ask you, which path do you believe leads to true power, strength, or wisdom? Stay with me until the end, and this story might change the way you see your own journey. And if you enjoy thought-provoking stories like this, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Takeshi followed Master Ryo along a narrow dirt path that wound through the hills. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, and the distant sound of rushing water echoed through the valley. The warrior remained tense, his hand hovering near the hilt of his sword. He didn't trust this journey. He had trained in combat his entire life, yet now he was following a monk who carried nothing but a wooden staff and an unreadable smile. Where exactly are we going? Takeshi asked. Forward, the monk replied simply. Takeshi rolled his eyes, but kept walking. After an hour of silence, they reached a river, fast-moving, deep, and without a bridge. The only way across was a set of old stepping stones, partially submerged. Takeshi didn't hesitate. He leaped onto the first stone, then the second, moving quickly. But halfway across, the moss-covered rock beneath him slipped, and his foot plunged into the icy water. With a curse, he stumbled but managed to regain his balance. He was soaked. Master Ryo, still standing on the shore, watched in silence. Then, without a word, the monk stepped onto the first stone, pausing before each step. He moved slowly, testing his footing, letting his weight settle before moving forward. When he finally reached the other side, completely dry, he turned to Takeshi with a knowing smile. You are fast, but you do not see. Takeshi scowled. A warrior must be quick, and yet speed did not serve you here, the monk said. Takeshi had no response. They continued walking. As they climbed higher into the hills, they spotted a small village below in turmoil. A crowd had gathered in the square, shouting angrily. Two men stood at the center, faces red with rage. Takeshi, sensing conflict, tightened his grip on his sword. A fight is coming, he muttered. Master Ryo, however, shook his head. Let us see before we act. As they reached the village, a young woman approached them, desperation in her eyes. Please help us, she cried. The two village leaders are about to fight over a land dispute. If they do, the village will be divided forever. Takeshi cracked his knuckles. Then we stopped them by force. Master Ryo said nothing, stepping forward calmly. Before the warriors could attack each other, the monk raised a hand. Tell me, he said, his voice low but commanding. What will you gain from this battle? The men hesitated. The crowd grew quiet. One of the leaders, still breathing heavily, answered, "I will win what is rightfully mine." Master Ryo nodded. "And if you win, but lose your neighbor in the process, will you be richer or poorer?" The man blinked. Takeshi watched in silence as the tension slowly drained from the men's faces. After a long pause, one of them sighed. "Then what do you suggest, monk?" Master Ryo smiled. "Sit, talk, find a way forward without bloodshed." The two men exchanged glances, then, reluctantly, they sat down. Takeshi exhaled, crossing his arms. "You believe that words are stronger than steel." Master Ryo began walking again. "A blade can cut flesh, but words can cut through anger. Tell me, which wound heals faster?" Takeshi had no answer. For the first time, he wondered if he had been looking at strength the wrong way. The road ahead narrowed into a steep mountain trail. The air grew thinner, and the wind howled between the cliffs. Takeshi adjusted the sword on his back, his muscles tense from the long climb. Master Ryo, however, walked at the same steady pace, unaffected by the rough terrain. As they turned a sharp corner, they arrived at a deep ravine. A narrow wooden bridge stretched across it, swaying slightly in the wind. The river below crashed violently against jagged rocks. The sight made Takeshi's pulse quicken. Without hesitation, he stepped forward, determined to cross first. But the moment his foot touched the old planks, they creaked under his weight. He hesitated, then pushed forward, moving quickly from one unstable board to the next. Halfway across, a strong gust of wind howled through the ravine. The bridge shifted beneath him, and before he could react, one of the planks snapped. His foot slipped, and for a brief moment, he felt himself falling. His hands shot out, gripping the ropes just in time. His heart pounded as he steadied himself, forcing his breathing to slow. He glanced back, expecting Master Ryo to be right behind him, but the monk hadn't moved. Instead, he stood at the edge of the bridge, watching calmly. Takeshi gritted his teeth. "Are you just going to stand there?" he snapped. Master Ryo smiled. "You rush into danger, expecting strength to carry you through. But tell me, did your speed help you this time?" Takeshi didn't answer. Then slowly, the monk stepped onto the bridge. Unlike Takeshi, he moved deliberately, pressing each foot down gently before shifting his weight. He held onto the ropes, swaying naturally with the wind instead of resisting it. Step by step, he made his way across. When he finally reached the other side, his robe was unruffled, his breath steady. Takeshi scoffed. "You took forever." Master Ryo chuckled. "And yet, I never stumbled." They continued their journey, the mountain air cool against their faces. Takeshi remained quiet, lost in thought. He had always believed that hesitation was weakness, that speed and strength were the only ways to conquer obstacles. But now, he wondered if patience was not a form of strength in itself. The path soon led them to a small plateau, where a lone traveler sat beside a dying fire. He was an old man, his body frail, his clothes tattered. As they approached, he looked up, his eyes tired. "Travelers," the man said weakly, "do you have any food to spare?" Takeshi sighed. He was hungry himself, and they had little to share. He reached into his pack, pulling out a small portion of rice, then hesitated. Would giving this man food make him weaker later? Before he could decide, Master Ryo knelt down and handed the man his entire ration without a second thought. Takeshi frowned. "Why did you do that? We barely have enough for ourselves." Master Ryo simply smiled. "Because sometimes, strength is not in what you keep, but in what you give." The old man bowed deeply, gratitude shining in his eyes. Takeshi said nothing as they walked away, but the weight of the moment sat heavily in his mind. As the wind picked up again, he found himself watching how Master Ryo walked, not fighting against the gusts, but moving with them. It was a strange thing to witness. Takeshi had always believed control was about overpowering a challenge. But here was a man who controlled nothing, yet was never at risk of falling. They pressed on toward the mountain's peak. The air grew colder as Takeshi and Master Ryo climbed higher. Dark clouds gathered above them, and the distant rumble of thunder echoed through the mountains. The storm was coming. Takeshi adjusted the straps of his pack and picked up his pace. "We should move quickly before the rain hits," he said. Master Ryo, however, slowed down. "The storm is already here," the monk replied, looking at the sky. "You cannot outrun it." Takeshi gritted his teeth. "Then we push through. A warrior does not stop just because the path gets difficult." The wind howled through the cliffs, and the first drops of rain splashed against his skin. The rocky trail became slick, and the path ahead turned treacherous. But Takeshi refused to stop. Then, suddenly, his foot slipped. The wet rock beneath him gave way, and he lost his balance. In a split second, he tumbled down the steep incline, his body colliding with the jagged surface. When he finally came to a stop, pain shot through his side. His ankle throbbed. He had fallen. Gritting his teeth, he tried to stand, but the sharp pain in his leg forced him back down. The rain poured harder, soaking his clothes and chilling his skin. He was trapped. Above him, Master Ryo appeared at the edge of the slope, looking down at him with calm eyes. "You are hurt," the monk said. Takeshi exhaled sharply. "I noticed." Instead of climbing down, Master Ryo simply sat on a dry patch of ground beneath an overhanging rock. He pulled his robe tighter around himself and closed his eyes, as if he had all the time in the world. Takeshi clenched his fists. "What are you doing? Help me up." The monk opened one eye. "The ground is too wet. If I move now, I will slip as well." Takeshi's frustration grew. "Then what am I supposed to do? Just sit here and wait?" Master Ryo smiled. "Yes." The rain continued to fall, and Takeshi's breathing grew heavy. He hated this feeling, helplessness. He had always believed that a warrior must fight against everything, overcome every challenge, push through any obstacle. But right now, there was nothing to fight, nothing to push through, just the rain. The realization settled in like a heavy stone in his chest. The storm did not care about his strength. It did not care that he was a warrior. For the first time, he had no choice but to surrender. So slowly, he closed his eyes and let the rain fall. The minutes stretched on, and something strange happened. As he stopped fighting against the storm, he started to feel lighter. The rain was still cold, but it was no longer an enemy. It was just there. After what felt like an eternity, the storm began to ease. The clouds thinned, and the wind softened into a whisper. Master Ryo stood and made his way carefully down the slope. He extended his hand. "Now the ground is safe." Takeshi, exhausted, took the monk's hand and pulled himself up. As they resumed their journey, Takeshi walked slower, more aware of his steps. He no longer rushed ahead. He had learned something valuable. Sometimes, true strength is knowing when to stop fighting. The mountain trail narrowed as Takeshi and Master Ryo approached a ridge overlooking the valley. The storm had passed, but the air still carried the scent of rain, and the earth beneath their feet was damp and slick. The journey had tested Takeshi in ways he had not expected. He had always believed that strength meant pushing forward, conquering every challenge, and never yielding. But now, after the river, the village dispute, the bridge, and the storm, he wasn't so sure anymore. Master Ryo walked ahead, his pace unhurried, as if he had no concern for time. Takeshi had begun to notice this about the monk, his ability to move forward without forcing his way through. Before he could dwell on this thought, the sound of rustling leaves and hurried footsteps caught his attention. Takeshi's instinct sharpened. Something was wrong. From the trees ahead, 3 men stepped onto the path. Their clothes were tattered, their faces hard with desperation. Bandits. Takeshi's hand went to the hilt of his sword before they even spoke. "Hand over your packs," one of them growled, stepping forward. "And anything else of value." Takeshi stepped in front of Master Ryo, his stance firm. "If you know what's good for you, you'll leave now." The leader of the bandits sneered. "And if we don't?" Takeshi drew his sword. The blade gleamed under the morning sun, its edge sharp and ready. He was prepared for this. This was what he had trained for. But before he could move, Master Ryo placed a hand on his shoulder. "Put your sword away." Takeshi turned sharply. "They are threatening us." The monk's expression was calm. "And will your blade end their desperation?" Takeshi hesitated. Master Ryo took a step forward and, to Takeshi's shock, bowed deeply to the bandits. "You must be hungry," the monk said. "Take what food we have. No one needs to be harmed today." The bandits exchanged uncertain glances. They had likely expected resistance, not kindness. The leader hesitated before taking the small bag of rice Master Ryo offered. His grip was tense, as if he expected a trick. But when nothing happened, his expression softened. You're just giving this to us." Master Ryo nodded. "You do not need to steal to survive. When a man is starving, he should ask for help, not take by force. If you continue this path, it will only lead to pain, for you and for others." The bandits looked at each other. For a moment, the tension lingered in the air. Then, without another word, they turned and disappeared into the forest. Takeshi stood frozen, gripping his sword. He had been ready to fight, to cut them down if needed, but it hadn't been necessary. Master Ryo turned to him. "A blade can cut flesh, but words can cut through anger. Tell me, which wound heals faster?" Takeshi looked down at his sword. For the first time, it felt heavy. He slid it back into its sheath. They continued walking in silence, but inside, Takeshi's mind was far from still. Everything he thought he knew about strength, it was beginning to change. Which path would you choose? The warrior or the sage? Or is there a balance between both? The mountain path descended into rolling green fields, leading back toward the village where Takeshi's journey had begun. The sky was clear now, the storm long gone, but something else had changed. The weight in Takeshi's heart felt different. For years, he had lived by one belief. Strength was the only thing that mattered. A warrior fought, conquered, and overcame every obstacle with force. But now, after witnessing Master Ryo's way, after seeing power in patience, wisdom in stillness, and victory without a fight, he wasn't sure anymore. As they reached the edge of the village, Master Ryo stopped and turned to him. "You have walked both paths now, warrior. What have you learned?" Takeshi took a slow breath. He thought of the river, the village dispute, the bridge, the storm, and the bandits. He thought of how each challenge had tested him. Not just his strength, but his mind. "That strength is not what I thought it was," he finally said. Master Ryo smiled. "And what is it?" Takeshi looked toward the mountains they had traveled. Strength had carried him through the hardest moments of his life, but wisdom had shown him how to survive them. Balance. The monk's smile widened. "Then your journey has not been in vain." Takeshi glanced at his sword. He would still train. He would still fight when needed, but he would no longer fight blindly. As he walked into the village, he felt different. Not weaker, not softer, but stronger in a way he had never been before. What's one moment in your life where you realized strength wasn't just about force, but also about wisdom? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. If this lesson resonated with you, if it inspired you to rethink the balance between strength and wisdom, consider leaving a like. It's a small gesture, but it helps this message reach others who might need it today. And if you're ready to explore more transformative stories like this, ones that challenge the way you see yourself and the world, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. That way, you'll never miss a story that could change the way you live your life. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. Until next time, stay balanced, stay curious, and remember, sometimes true strength lies not in overpowering, but in understanding.